And we are live on YouTube and Facebook. How's everybody doing today?
You wanted to go on live on Keto Savage, right?
Yeah. Did you get out of the shower?
No, I went for a run.
You get out of the shower too?
Oh, I ran in the rain.
You ran in the rain? Nice. How's everybody doing today?
Hi, everyone.
Jumping on here. All right, so we're going to talk about
That's
macros.
so far above our head on Facebook and YouTube.
There's a little bit. You want to...
Hopefully you love the view of our blinds.
Let me fix that. You keep talking, babe.
Hi, guys. We're going to talk about macros today after we fix our camera that's over there. How's everyone doing? Happy Wednesday. Happy stinking Wednesday.
How's that better?
Yeah, let's get right there. Right there. Yeah, happy Wednesday. Middle of the week. It's such a good week. Keto Heathen says, what's Keto Savage? Are you asking what Keto Savage is or what's up, Keto Savage?
What's up? I'm assuming.
How are y'all? We're good. Hope to see you Saturday.
What's happening?
What's happening Saturday? Blue Barn Bakery. If you're in Arkansas, Blue Barn Bakery is doing, they are moving locations and they're opening up their doors on Saturday.
Daniel Duncan says, what's up? Kathy says, hello, Mr. and Mrs. Hump. Happy Hump Day. Happy Hump Day. All right, let's talk about macros. So the question last week was brought to us about, I don't even know what the context of the question was, like how do you track macros? How do you hit macros? So what kind of topic do you want to dive into with macros?
I don't know. What was the exact question that they asked last week?
I don't know if there was an exact question. I think it was just talk about macros.
Okay, so let's talk about macros. What are the macros? Protein, fat, carbs, and sometimes people include like alcohol. Yeah.
Sometimes ketones. So,
but majority of the time when people are talking about macros, they're talking about protein, carbs, and fats. The three. Now,
was Monica one that asked the question? Monica, you said macros. Were you the one that asked the question? Was there a specific question on macros that you asked last week?
Yeah, I can't remember the exact question.
I think it's something about how do you hit macros. If you have your target macros.
Well, let's just talk about a little bit about all of it. So those are the three macros. When people talk about hitting macros, they're probably trying to hit a specific ratio of those macros. So there is, like we talked about, I think last week, there's 9 calories for every 1 gram of fat, 4 calories for every 1 gram of protein, and 4
calories for every 1 gram of carb.
Yeah. Yes. Sorry. Woo! That was real hard. I tried that another time.
To be teaching us?
Excuse me. I said it all last week, but I got all mixed matched because I read a comment while I was speaking. Anywho, so those will equal out your macros your macros translated into calories will equal your total caloric intake for the day. So if you're hitting your specific macros that you've gotten from a calculator, from a coach, from yourself, then those macros will equal out to be your calories.
I've never understood why people say I track macros but not calories.
Yeah, that's the weirdest thing to me.
It's like one and the same. Like
it is the same thing.
If you know your macros, then you inherently know your calories.
Yeah.
So there is no one without the other.
And if you're counting your calories but not your macros, your macros could be every which way.
Yeah.
But you're just getting a certain amount of calories, which is not optimal because you should know how much protein you're in. If you're going to count everything and you're trying to optimize your health, then you should know like how much protein you're getting in, making sure that that is optimal. You should know how much of your energy source you're getting in, because if you're a carb eater, you don't want to have a ton of fat. If you're having a ton of fat with keto, you don't want to have a ton of carbs. So you should probably know which fuel source you're using and primarily having that, if that makes sense.
Yes.
Anyways, how to track macros. You want to dive into that part?
First of all, let's do a little intro on figuring out what your macros should be. There's a lot of questions on this. This is going to be very individualized, and I wouldn't be able to tell you an exact one-cut answer for everybody within the scope of this video. Every single client I've worked with has different macros. It's going to depend on your history with your dieting, how long you've been in a deficit, how long you've been in a surplus. Like that's going to determine your macros and your caloric intake. How long you've been fat adapted can impact your macros. What your body fat percentage is going to affect your macros. What your goals are is going to affect your macros. Your sex could affect your macros. Your genetics could affect your macros. There's just so many things that could affect the macro distribution. If you're listening to us, I'm assuming you're probably keto or low carb, carnivore, something within that spectrum. So you're probably not consuming a whole bunch of carbohydrates. So the question then becomes, should I have more protein macros, more fat macros? That also depends on all those variables mentioned. A lot of people are in the mindset now that you have to have super high protein relative to your fat macros. And I'm not saying that that is not fine for some people, but I would definitely say that that is not fine if the objective is to optimize your ketogenic diet and lifestyle from a nutritional standpoint. I'm about to ruffle some feathers here.
Oh boy.
I don't even know where to tackle this because it's just like people get so confused. The grass always looks green on the other side. People follow one diet and they're like, oh, this is working for me, but look at all those other diets over there. Let's go do all that. So they'll do one thing. They'll hear about how great keto is, how high fat, low carb is great. So they'll try that, and they'll see somebody talking about high protein, low fat, and they'll try that. Where people get screwed up is they don't ever stick to any one thing for any length of time. They're constantly bouncing around from one. That's where people mess up. Any diet can work. Any macro distribution can work if you are consistent and you are strategic in how you do it. Now, just because it works doesn't mean it's not, it can't be fixed. Yeah. Like, there's a difference between working and being optimal. I would argue, having tried all these different diets over the years, that a ketogenic diet is optimal for me. And I'm not saying that what's best for me is best for everybody. But what I am saying is that it's worked really, really well for me, and it's worked really, really well for a lot of other people. So to say that it's not effective is just totally ignorant and false. And to say that you can't eat a lot of fat on a ketogenic diet is just weird to me. I'm probably going to make a whole video about how, I don't want to give away the video, but people are like, there's this identity crisis within the keto space right now in which people are saying that they're keto, but their macros are nothing keto at all. Like they'll be doing super high carb days. They'll be doing super high protein days with super low fat. It's like, that's great. Do what you do. If it's working for you, more power to you. But you can't say that you're keto if your macros are such that it doesn't reflect anything ketogenic at all. It's just like there's this weird identity crisis right now with everything beyond the scope of nutrition. But that's a topic for another day. So anyways, to bring this back full circle into macros with this conversation, I would encourage you to know there's a bunch of variables at play. I've got a macro tracker on my website that I just totally revamped that is specific to the ketogenic diet and macro distribution within the ketogenic window. It also takes into account different people's, age, sex, body fat percentage, activity level, and goal. So play around with that for sure. But once you have your set macros, how do you hit those macros, babe?
I did make a video on this on our YouTube channel, but what I do myself is I choose the foods that I want in my diet that day. Most of the time, mine has something to do with eggs, some sort of beef, some bone broth, and heavy cream because I like heavy cream in my coffee. So I'll start with those 4 things, and I'll say, okay, how much cream do I want in my coffee? How much, liverwurst do I want? How much just ground beef or steak do I want? How much eggs? So I plug in the things that I want to eat minimum. So I'll plug those in, and then I have a little bit of room to play with. I'm like, okay, what do I want with my steak? I need a little bit of fat, so let me add a tablespoon of butter, and then I'll, so I start with the basic things that I know I want to get in that day. So the things that are important, not stinking keto cookies or whatever. Start with the nutrient-dense foods and then fill in the rest of your day. So figure out how much meat you want, figure out how many eggs you want, figure out how much cream you want in your coffee. Start with those and then slowly start to add little things into your macros to fill in the rest of the protein or the rest of the fat that you need. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Having a good solid base, which for me is like ground beef, eggs, and a brick. Like most of my
Yeah.
macro goals, if I'm eating ground beef or steak, eggs, and a brick, I'm pretty well getting close to that. If I've got higher protein, not higher protein relative to fat, but higher protein relative to lower protein within the realms of fat, then I might do more of like a 85-15 ground beef. If my fat ratio is higher based off of my specific goal that week, then I might have a 75-25 ground beef or 73-27 or 80-20, depending on what my macro goals are. Like I'll make ground beef the base
center, yeah.
And then from that, it's much, much easier to manipulate with, adding an egg or subtracting an egg. It makes it easier to like have that base and have macro toppers that you can add to that to give you some more flavor variety, more texture variety, but not have to totally reroute your entire, meal planning basically.
And I will tell you, one of my tricks that works the best is my yogurt at night. If I have my yogurt, I pretty much know, like, okay, I'll put that into my macros, but then I'm like, okay, I need 20 grams of fat. Where am I going to get 20 grams of fat? And then I'll add like MCT oil to my yogurt. Or if I'm like, oh, I need 10 grams of protein, then I'll add 1 scoop of collagen to my yogurt. And that's a really good way of like, if you just have on the verge of like 10 or 20 grams of something, throw it in your yogurt and you're good to go. Like that's a really easy way. Like if you get to the end of your day and you need something, that's a really good way to do it too.
All right. Randall says, hey, yo, any new brick flavors coming out soon? We do have some new brick flavors in the works. However, we probably won't launch them until we move because we're about to move and there's just a million irons in the fire right now. So we'll probably do that soon after we move, but not until we move. Kristen says, hey, from Michigan, thank you. Thanks for all you two do. I've been watching you guys from very beginning, and Crystal, you've come so far as in feeling comfortable on camera.
Mm-hmm.
Keep up the great work. Thank you. Yeah,
it is funny. Well, like when Robert first started the YouTube, I wasn't allowed to be on it because we were just dating at the time. And he's like, I don't want to like get people all mixed up and stuff if something happens between us. And then he slowly started to introduce me and I was so quiet. But it's because at that point, it was his it was his face, goodness.
YouTube.
It was his YouTube. So I had to like respect that he knew what he was talking about and no one needed to listen to me. So as soon as it became yours, I became a lot more comfortable.
It's not like I didn't think anybody wanted to listen to you.
It was your channel though.
Yeah, and we had just started talking, so it's like I don't want to like introduce you and then us be
breaking up in a couple weeks. It totally made sense. And you started introducing me right before we moved to Arkansas, which made more sense because we were.
I introduced you after my competition that you came with.
Yeah.
And helped me with. That was the first time I introduced you.
Yeah.
Off-topic question from Monica: will you guys do any events in Florida? I see KetoCon, but nothing in Florida. I don't know of any keto events in Florida, but I would totally be down to go to a keto event in Florida. So if anything pops up, let us know.
Usually there's a bunch of like little meetups or things like that happen, but we haven't. I don't know any that are in Florida. Danny and Mara Vega are in Florida. You might see if they know of any that are going on near where you guys are. I like that. Choose what you want first, they said.
Boom. Fat to Fit. Gabby says, can I do good, lose fat, and reverse my insulin resistance if I eat in a calorie deficit, eat mostly clean keto, and eat low carb at 50 grams of total carbs every day, even if I don't actually get into ketosis? All right, so that would definitely be a step in the right direction. I don't know where your calories are at. I don't know what your maintenance intake is. You don't want to chronically be under eating because that can have a damaging effect on your metabolic rates. And you don't want to be, you want to kind of like take calories down to like a minimum viable dose, basically. Like go as low as you can, go as high as you can while still being in a deficit to elicit the response that a deficit will give you, if that makes sense. I don't want to be too confusing here, but yeah, 50 grams of carbs, total carbs every day. If you're eating a ton right now and you go to 50 grams, that's definitely a step in the right direction. You'll probably benefit more from a ketone production standpoint if you go a little bit lower than that, but simply removing a bunch of processed carbs and processed fats and like, vegetables and things like that will likely help tremendously.
I also would suggest maybe looking at where you're getting those 50 grams of carbs. If it's coming from like vegetables and things, that's really great and that's super clean. Maybe even like some flax or some seeds or something. But if you're getting it a lot from like keto treats or desserts or sweeteners or something like that, I would definitely rethink those. But if you're getting it from whole food sources, you're probably pretty good to go. What if you have high visceral fat? Would you reduce fat macros?
Not necessarily. You like there's the whole fat macro thing is a big debate. But you don't necessarily have to have like there's this belief that you have to have low dietary fat if your goal is to lose body fat, whether that's visceral fat or just normal adipose tissue. That's not necessarily the case. Like your calories do come into account, but you can be in a calorie deficit and still have a very high percentage of your calories coming from dietary fat. You want to make sure you get enough protein, but don't feel like you have to drop fat to lose fat. That's not the case at all. Hello from Leanne Hitapoe. What's going on, Miss Hitapoe? How you doing?
You read that like you didn't know who it was.
I did as soon as I saw Hitapoe. Not too many people with that name.
I recently got a new source of lamb hearts. The previous ones were lean. These new ones have about 1/3 inch straight fat surrounding them like you see on a ribeye. They are super fatty. How do I figure out nutrition facts on them? All on the web I see are the lean ones. Thank you so much. That is super hard.
Yeah, it's tough. Like when you're getting like hearts and stuff. I mean, when you're getting ribeyes too. I mean, you can look at one ribeye that's much leaner than a normal ribeye, so it's going to vary a lot depending on the actual cut. That's why with things like that, if you get it from the same supplier, over time it averages out. Yeah. So you just have to play the game of averages, basically.
Yeah, if you're gonna eat steaks, things like that, like hearts that have a little bit more fat or a little less fat, it's going to be really hard. If you are trying to like strictly track macros, then you might think about just like getting a type of beef that's like 80-20, 90-10, so on, or like a lean chicken breast and add, some sort of oil to it or butter or something like that. That's a lot more realistic in getting the macros. But with that one, you're kind of have to guess.
Quick little caveat here. I've got a client call in 10 minutes. So just heads up, everybody. I'm going to jump off of that. Steven says, perfect subject for my question. I use Carb Manager app for tracking and always weigh my meat prior to cooking, but I always wondered if this is wrong as I am losing out on protein and fat. So I always weigh my meat prior to cooking as well. However, I always try and get and salvage whatever fat drippings cook off. So if I'm cooking something in a pan, for instance, there's a bunch of fat left over, I'll scramble eggs up with that fat and eat those eggs. That way I'm getting the fat macros that I accounted for when I weighed that meat prior to cooking.
Or use that fat poured into bone broth and it is delicious.
Yes.
So
KJ says, preach it, Robert. You are so correct with other YouTubers confusing others with their testing of macros outside of keto.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the thing is, like, I don't care if they do that. Like, if it's working for you, more power to you. But you can't do that and then say that you're eating a keto diet. Like, if you're eating 300 grams of protein and 30 grams of fat and you have a weekly carb up, you're not eating a keto diet. Like, I don't care if you identify as keto. You're not eating a keto diet. So
yeah, it's very interesting to me to see the turns that have taken. Like, a lot of people get very defensive over what is keto and what is not, and they call like people the keto police or whatever. And they say, keto is a state, and it is a state, but it's also, there's like more of an optimal way of, eating fat, producing ketones and things like that. So there's, more optimal ways for one person. There's more optimal ways for another person. But it's so funny to hear how defensive people get over it.
Yeah, it is strange.
Should you eat your meal in a specific time frame? You want to answer that?
I like to condense my eating window so that I'm not snacking throughout the day. Depending on what my caloric intake is. Like, if I'm at a lower caloric intake, I like to do OMAD. If I'm at a higher caloric intake like I am right now, I'll do 2 meals a day. But I just would avoid just constant snacking. That's the main thing.
They said, what What about the cooking method for meat? How do you find macros for the cooked if you don't eat the rendered fat?
Well, most fat is like 14 grams of fat per tablespoon. So if you have a bunch of rendered
Yeah.
fat left in the pan and it looks like a tablespoon, you could measure it out. And if it feels like a tablespoon, that's about 14 grams
Yeah,
of fat.
just like remove that from your macros. But also, my question would be, why would you remove the good fat that you're getting from meat? That would be the type of fat that I would want to get in first.
What's a good yogurt and collagen you like that's keto friendly? We've been doing. I love the
Sorry.
Kalina yogurt. That's really good. It's not a dairy base; it's a coconut base, but it's got a super
What?
favorable keto macro profile, and very low carbs, pretty high fat. It's pretty tasty.
My favorite is the Faye. It's Fage. It's actually really good. Or the Stonyfield. There are carbs in them. There's going to be carbs in just about any yogurt that you eat, but it's about 6 grams for a serving, and there's no added sugar. There's no flavorings. There's no added sugar. It's just the sugars within the milk and the bacteria, whatever. And then my favorite collagen, unsweetened, unflavored, would be Vital Proteins. And then my favorite sweetened one with stevia or monk fruit is Ancient Nutrition.
I'm gonna burn through these pretty quick because I've only got about 5 minutes left here before my client call.
Okay, this is a funny one. I'm hoping it rains so I can get outside, be savage like Crystal was today.
Can I have strawberries, cashews, and pistachios on keto? Yes, but they're not optimal. Like if you've reached your goal and you're trying to maintain, then I would say, yeah, that's totally like I would consider that like a treat on keto. Like that's a healthy treat, much more so than like, ding dongs and hot pockets. But that's not really going to be conducive to you reaching the goal per se. Randall says, okay, I'll just order 1 month of bricks. That'd be great. Thank you, Randall. Sunny says I'll organize a Florida keto event. Let us know when it is, Sunny, and we'll be there too.
I'll let you pay for it too.
Yeah. I'm 395, 28, 5 feet 8 inches, female, sedentary, and insulin resistant. I'm eating 2,000 calories a day for fat loss each week. Too low or just the right amount of calories? I would still need to know a lot more than that. Like your dieting, like we'd have to jump on a client call. I mean, 2,000 calories is not a bad amount of calories. That's not a whole lot. But what I would do, like if you're insulin resistant, I would keep that carb count very low. Make sure you're getting adequate protein. Like if you knew how much of that weight was your lean mass and made sure that you're getting no less than that in grams of protein, probably higher than that in protein, that would be a great place to start. And then you could fill the rest of those macros with dietary fat, not carbs. That would definitely put you in the right direction for sure. Miss Hitapole says, I eat a lot of meat and eggs and I don't like keto chow or the keto collagens. What can I use to fill in? We are doing good. Glad to hear you're doing good.
Yeah.
Doesn't like keto chow or keto collagens. What can I use to fill in?
I personally like to mix up my meats. So you can have 1 day of pork tenderloin with Brussels sprouts and butter, and then the next day have a salad with taco meat, taco seasoning in with the ground beef. Put it on a salad with other kind of taco style taco salad style stuff, and the next day have chicken with broccoli and asparagus, or you can mix up the types of meats and also the type of vegetables and use those vegetables as a tool to get in some more fat with butter or oils or something like that. And then seasonings are an amazing thing. You don't have to do anything crazy, but season up the meats and it'll taste completely different.
All right. What you got over there?
And for instance, would I track melangia meat because it's a type of cut, meaning very lean or very thin, or standard sirloin because that is what kind of meat it is in general? I don't even know what that is.
Yeah, I'd probably just do standard sirloin and then kind of let it average out. Especially that's the majority of what you're eating there for sure.
Wanted to say hi. I have to start tracking my macros again, Adam says.
There you go.
Can you improve your metabolic capacity similar to how Lane Norton suggests with keto?
I don't know exactly what Lane Norton says with regard to metabolic capacity, but yes, you can absolutely improve your metabolism and your metabolic rate with a well-formulated ketogenic diet. If your caloric intake is properly implemented, you're eating enough food, and you're weight training and building more lean tissue.
Lost body fat at 78% with DSK when you first launched it. Now I am stalled, not losing fat. Yes, now I am dropping fat, raising protein, and I am totally confused. Where should I be at? When we launched it?
Lost body fat at 78%.
Yeah, at that point.
With DSK.
Yeah.
When you first launched it. Now I am stalled, not losing fat. Yes. Now I am dropping fat, raising protein, and I totally am confused. Where should I be at? Yeah, deeper state keto is not recommending you drop a bunch of dietary fat and raise protein, or unless you're in phase 2. I don't know if this is specific to.
If you're in onboard, if you're in the protein threshold area, I don't know if you're still doing DSK or if that was like how you found the percentage. Where you were at before, and now you're trying to change things up. So
are you still doing deeper state keto?
Yeah, that is our question.
All right, this is literally the last one because I've got to jump on a client call. Thank you for touching on the fat intake because there is a lot of different information circulating around, and many now saying the reason for weight stall or even gain now on keto is because people are consuming high fat, and keto is supposed to prioritize protein and leverage fat. Is this correct? I don't feel well. Higher protein.
Yeah. That is the weirdest thing I've ever heard, that protein is supposed to be higher on keto.
Yeah, I mean, protein is incredibly important. And anybody that suggests that you don't consume very much protein is wrong. Protein is very, very important. There is an upper threshold for protein.
I get super sick if I eat too much protein.
Yes. You do not want to have super low fat either, though, because then you can have some implications from a hormonal standpoint, from a satiety standpoint, from an energy and fueling standpoint. There's a sweet spot there. You have to have the right amount of protein and the right amount of fat. Going to the extremes on either one of those is a bad idea.
I think we should hit on macros again next week because I feel like there's a ton of questions regarding macros. And
yes.
So if we didn't get to your question, please jump on next Wednesday at 5 p.m. Central Time, and we will get to those questions.
Yes.
Please. So sorry. We'll try not to get Robert on a client call immediately after the live next week, and we can maybe take a little bit longer. But we'll go over macros again next week.
Yes. Appreciate y'all. Love y'all. Take care. Toodaloo. Adios.
Bye.